Okay, so now we're into categories 6 through 10 in the expectation dashboard. We're going to be touching on one question from each in this video. The first category is a fun one and an easy conversation to have, and a conversation that the advisor will very much enjoy having, and it's around knowing what student behaviors delight or frustrate your advisor. The question I'm covering here is, what things have prior students done or not done that have been the most frustrating? Now, this is a question that advisors will love to answer. The idea that a student would ask them this means that the student cares about this, and that having this conversation may well reduce the chance that those frustrations will happen with this student. And if it's the case that the advisor has had students that did very frustrating things, then they will feel some strong emotions about it, and that will probably come out in the conversation. If I were the advisor and you asked me that, I might be like, oh, there was this one student that they just disappeared. They just never communicated with me. And when somebody talks like that and they're conveying emotion, I'll slip into a little human dynamics here. It's an opportunity for the two of you to connect at a more fundamental level than at the usual technical level. You get to know the person better, and you feel more connected, and you really get to understand them better. So if you see them later grousing about something to a certain level, you will already know, oh, that really annoys them. You won't think, oh, they're a jerk, or oh, they're being a bad person because they are acting in this way. You'll have an insight that, they're a human being and they've been frustrated by things in the past, and you'll just feel more connected to them. Okay, so next category. Expectations around concepts and skills. There are 3 questions here, and the one I picked was, what concepts and skills are most important for me to ramp up on? Now, it just occurs to me that I haven't bothered to say whether the question that I'm talking about, or even the category of question I'm talking about, is only a question that's relevant when you're starting out, or if they're still relevant kind of on an ongoing basis. So think of it this way. If there's any of these questions in this document that you don't know the answer to, it's good to ask the question, no matter how far in you are. So this one is probably good to ask periodically, especially if you're getting into a new project or something like that. What's most important for me to ramp up on? Next category, expectations around meetings and plans. There's some important stuff in here. Let's see how many. 4 basic questions. The most important one I'm actually going to have a whole video about, so I'm going to skip that one. Let's see which one I picked here. Okay. Will you specify what I should present at meetings and how I should present it? For example, raw data or synthesized data, or do I need to draw conclusions? Or do you want me to do just what I think best? One of the professors I worked with had ongoing frustrations because students would come to meetings and just present raw data. And the professor felt that really what needed to be happening was the student should have thought about the data and tried to draw some conclusions, because they're just going to learn more that way. Okay, category 9, expectations around research group meetings. So if you are a student that is working with an advisor and there are group meetings that you're doing, this would apply. If I don't understand something in a group meeting, are you okay investing time during the meeting re-explaining things, or should I ask the question offline? Now this comes up because in a group meeting, there's a bunch of students, and maybe there are reviewing papers. And often when you have a question, usually there's somebody else, maybe more than one other person, that also has the same question, but nobody wants to ask the question because nobody wants to slow the group down. Nobody wants the other people to know that they don't know the answer to that question. Maybe they think they should know the answer to that question. They're embarrassed, all sorts of stuff. But if you have this conversation, you'll know what the advisor thinks about that. Okay, the next category is expectations around research project meetings. Okay, this category has 5 questions in it, but I'm picking one here. This is a very bold question. So let's say you're in a project and you can see the writing on the wall. Something about the advisor's plan is just not going to work for some reason, and you know it, or at least you have a strong sense of that. But you don't know how to bring this up with the advisor. So here we go. If I have concerns about any of the following project issues, should I raise that concern during the project meeting or one-on-one? And the issues could be the approach taken, or technical risk, or manpower risk, or schedule risk, all these different things you may know because you have experience building software that with this paper deadline coming up, there's just no way you're going to implement stuff in time to do the research to get it all done in time. And so if you don't have the confidence to ask these questions, or if you don't ask these questions, there could be serious trouble because you're just postponing the pain. It's just going to be worse pain later and all sorts of stress. So it's really important to be able to ask questions like these. And asking this question up front, as is the case with all of these questions, creates a space where you know you've already talked about it. There's a reference point where you've brought it up before, and so you can bring it up again. It makes it easier to bring up if you've already had a conversation about these conversations. In fact, I'll just mention that this particular question employs a particular technique that I call having a conversation about the conversation. And it's a way to bring up difficult conversations. If there's something you want to say and you know it's going to be challenging or scary, or you're afraid of blowback, what you do, rather than just bringing stuff up, is you talk about that future conversation in another conversation. And so this is a perfect example of that, because you're saying, if at some point there's this issue, how do we talk about it? And then you get an answer, and then when it comes time, you know you have permission, or not, to do it. It's a great technique to use to get into these things. Okay, that's it for this video.